Can explain why the expectations and pressure are so high, and I don't even need words to do it. I can do it with a photo. Cindy, can you put the picture up? Someone took this picture and posted it. While Kalen DeBoer was talking, that's Nick Saban sitting there watching and taking notes, sitting next to Roman Harper. That's the reason. And Lewis, this is the point. I made this point when they hired. Kalen DeBoer is a good coach.
Yeah.
But I made this point when I said, this is not a good job. People talk about the Alabama job like it's a good job. It's a terrible job. You don't want to be the guy that follows the guy.
Yeah.
The best thing in life are low expectations. When you walk in, when you try and replace the most successful coach in the history of the sport, who is still living and breathing and talking and sort of an omnipresent figure in the culture of the sport, that's not a good spot to be in, and that's why this pressure exists.
Yeah.
Arch, as the number 1 overall pick, Jordan, is that what you're projecting?
I think it's a little premature right now. As we sit today, I don't think Arch is a first-round draft pick. Now, when the season's ending, I think he will get there. But a number 1 overall pick has to have a couple things. You have to have elite traits, like generational traits. I don't think Arch has a generational arm or generational athleticism. I think he's got a really good arm, and I think he's a really good athlete. Here's where I look at his game, and this is where I want to see him improve. It's the short passing game. He was the most inaccurate quarterback in the SEC from 0 to 10 yards and 122nd in the country, completing only 56% of those throws. He had a wild off-target percentage, very high, one of the highest in the country. And the reason is some of his lower body mechanics. His footwork needs to clean up. He needs to be more consistent with that. He's a little bit of a long strider, and when he does that, his body starts to lean, that release point starts to change. That's where things get inaccurate. He was better down the stretch last year. I expect that to improve. I expect him to get into the conversation of being a first-round draft pick, but a number 1 pick right now, not just yet. It's Trinidad Chambliss. I think it was the best quarterback or the best player in the entire college football playoff last year. Look, guys that can make the off-schedule plays like you see right here, scrambling around, over 500 rushing yards he had last year, the dynamic plays with his legs, that's great. But can you also play on time? Can you play in rhythm? He absolutely can. He can play with anticipation. He can make every single throw on time, whether that's intermediate, a seam route down the hash, or a glance route to the field. He can make every throw, and he does it with a fluidity. He's a natural thrower, a natural athlete. I think he could have been a first-round draft pick had he come out this year. And I think he's only scratching at the surface because remember, a year ago he was playing D2 ball. That was his first year in the big leagues, and he played that well. I think he's going to even take another step this year.
So, Lewis, our dear friend Mel Kiper used to tell me all the time, back in the day, and this is a different time, if Russell Wilson had been 6'3", he would have been right there to be the number 1 pick in the draft. Instead, he fell down deeper into the rounds. Trinidad Chambliss is about that height. He may be shorter than Russell Wilson, right? About 5'10".
They're very similar.
Something like that. Are we living in a different world now? Are we living in a world where a guy who's 5'10" can be a high first-round pick of the NFL draft?
Look, I think.
I know Kyler Murray was that guy once.
I got you. And look, and Kyler was an elite athlete.
Is this guy that?
No, he's not the same kind of athlete as Kyler is from a pure athletic explosiveness standpoint. But that being said, look, we've talked about this numerous different times. Look, the draft is an exercise of kind of like managing risk, right? So for Trinidad Chambliss, as good as he is, and I love him, and I agree with Jordan, he is phenomenal, and he's an even better kid. He is an elite player of the position. When you're talking about the number 1 overall pick, though, when you're talking about a guy who's the number 1, let's just say he comes out of this season and you still believe he is, the best quarterback in the draft, the fact that he doesn't possess elite traits in terms of height, weight, speed is going to make people pause as far as putting him as the number 1 quarterback coming out. There's going to be other guys who have better height, weight, speed, maybe overall arm talent type of characteristics that people are going to put ahead of him, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be a great pro, because I believe he will be.
That perhaps over the weekend at Fanatics Fest, that's Cam Scatterboo on that surgically repaired ankle, doing the backflip. Says he was perfectly fine afterwards, and I'm sure he was, but it certainly got a lot of people talking. They asked his head coach, Don Harbaugh, about it. Here's what he said.
My reaction was I haven't talked to him yet. I'm going to talk to him, I'm sure, but my reaction was this: dude, at least stick it. You know what I mean? Land the thing if you're going to do it. That was my first reaction. So, Scott's going to be ready to go, and he's been working super hard. He's really been training like crazy, and his mind is on camp. He's healthy, he's ready to roll, and I can't wait to see him out there at practice.
Okay, so I read your notes, Lewis. I'm going to start with you again because I read your thoughts on this.
Your leg is shaking.
Just said, and what we think is actually going on.
He's ready to go.
No, look, John's doing exactly what a good CEO is supposed to do. Right? He's trying to calm the flames down, calm down the rhetoric about Cam Scott, because that's what he's trying to do. I promise you, underneath he's going, what in the hell are you doing? how many things could have gone wrong right there? I don't care. Like, look, for someone who didn't have a surgically repaired lower leg injury, something could have went wrong here. Look, we need to stop making excuses for stuff like this when we're talking about professionals whose livelihood is their lower extremities in particular, and just, and chalking it up to just let them live, let them be themselves. We like individuals. There's no harm in that. Yeah, actually there is. Because he is beholden to his teammates, the organization, the expectations that are associated with this football team relative to how important he is to the team. You don't do that kind of stuff. You just don't. And I'm telling you what, if I was a teammate, and if I was the head coach, if I was the general manager, I know John Mara is not sitting there looking at that going, oh, that's cool. Yeah. Look at Scat out there just showing who he is. Oh, come on now. Don't do that. Don't do that kind of stuff.
Well, Greeny, I think one of the things that happened going into this year is that the College Football Playoff Management Committee wanted to reward those top 4 seeds more because of the conversations that are going on. And so there is a change this year. I think it's important to let everybody know. The number 1 seed this year gets to pick where it wants to go, which quarterfinal bowl. So that is a reward. And people also need to know that the top 4, the Power 4 conference champions are guaranteed spots this year. That wasn't the case last year. So Duke would have been in as the ACC champion. So there are some more incentives this year, to win your conference championship in spite of that long layoff, and to be the number 1 seed and pick that quarterfinal spot. But look, I asked Kurt Signetti what his secret was because he was the only one. He said, I'm not giving away my secrets, but we played way better than they did.
That's for sure. Anyone who watched that game against Alabama knows that's for sure true. Paul.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point that I think is worth making. It didn't bother Kurt Signetti because he won by 35 points. So I think you can pick your poison here, Greeny. The big issue that I hear from coaches in talking about expanding the playoff is that SEC or Big Ten championship game, because it is a war, to use a coaching cliche, but there is a lot of attrition in those games. And I think that's what hurts these schools who then have to play 10 days later, or in Kirby Smart's case, 28 days later.
As a general rule, not the way most people's minds actually work and function, but it's probably the right thing for him to say. Why are you shaking your head like that?
I think that sounds good to say. But knowing how passionate and fiery and sensitive Nick Sirianni is, I don't actually believe that. I think that's what you're supposed to say.
Right.
And I think I do think, to your point, he is underappreciated. I think this team, what they've been able to do, you tell me you've gone to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, and in the last Super Bowl that you won, you completely mauled the team that was going after a dynasty. Yeah, I think some more respect should be put on the Philadelphia Eagles, and every year we have this conversation about, well, how's the quarterback? Should the head coach still be there? So, but I think if you are the head coach of a team, you have to say who gives a bleep about what anybody else thinks. That's the message that you got to have internally.
Last year, they finished last in their division with a record of 9-8. If 9-8 is your down year, you are dangerous as an organization. They get to play a last place schedule. There are teams on their schedule that aren't on other teams' schedule that they'll be competing with for that 1 seed in the NFC. I believe that the Lions will bounce back in a big way.
Yeah, I really like the Lions for that reason. And I think what you said, they've proven that they're one of these teams that you can't count out. You have to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. No matter what, this team is going to be competitive. And I think we underappreciate Goff. I feel like that goes up and down. He's made an incredible strides, I think, in his career. And we always come back to the quarterback. He is a quarterback that I think can get it done if the situation is right. And right now, offensively, it feels like the situation is right.
About the coach on the hot seat, what conversations begin?
The quarterback has a lot of years left on his contract, but he's also at a point in that contract where it would normally be time to talk extension based on where the market has gone since then, where his guarantees are remaining, and how the contract is structured. He hasn't gotten an extension. So that at least gives you some idea that maybe that, the organization's at a point where it wants to continue to see improvement. Now, Jalen Hurts has been a player that more often than not in the offseason, when they've given him something to work on to improve, he's come back having done it. So if he takes to the Sean Mannion offense and he does the things that they need him to do, then yeah, I think we're smooth sailing. But if not, and if it looks like last year, I believe that you're going to see questions asked about everybody at every level of that organization.
It's pressure. And you only get to send back your food once at a restaurant. I don't like this food. It doesn't have this. Okay, sir, we'll take it back. You don't get to send it back twice. He sent the food back. He wasn't pleased with what was going on in front of him, and that's his right as a franchise quarterback. If that thing doesn't taste good this year to the fans, to the coaches, Jalen, you sent it back. This is your meal now. Make it work.
I mean, this will be the third offensive coordinator, and that's just there for 1 year. So, I don't imagine that they're going to, again, fall on the offensive coordinator. It's going to have to go to the head coach or the quarterback. No matter whose fault it is, they're going to take the blame.